Hello, viewers of FEECE Studios. My name is Luke, and I have an announcement to make. So, in the past, I have about 27-30 videos on my channel right now. I deleted all of my Luke talks. Wasn't proud of them. Thought I could do better. I think I made a video about that earlier. But beyond that, after I stopped making the Luke talks, I felt like I lost momentum a little bit, in some degree at least, because Luke talks was helping me create content regularly, and now when I stopped that and thought it wasn't a good idea, I felt like I lost a lot of momentum, because I guess you guys like Luke talks because when I did have them, it was one of the most viewed things on my channel, but I just didn't feel like it was going in the direction I wanted it to. So I sat down, had a thought to myself, thought, you know what, I want to figure out what FEECE Studios really is. And I think I figured it out. And Monday, you will get Luke Talks. Tuesday, you will get FEECE Tunes. Thursday, you will get, and FEECE Tunes can have like Story of Trey or maybe other cartoons I'm working on. And then I'll do most of the creating of my own stuff Saturday and Sunday. I'm also offering clientele work on usually weekdays is when I am able to do work for people that isn't myself. But that's the schedule I want to keep for you guys. I want to post Luke Talks Monday, Wednesday, animation Tuesday, and a little skit Friday, and I want to post a FEECE Studio show Thursday, or an interview or something. And that's what I have in mind. Now, when I said I wanted to change up my Luke Talks, because I'm actually going to bring that back now, but I'm reinventing it. Instead of it talking about myself and talking about what I'm doing with my own thing, I decided to bring it onto you guys. I'm going to teach you how to use a camera, how to play music of any sorts, how to speak, I don't know. But whatever I want to teach, I'm going to teach it through this YouTube channel. I think it's a good platform to do educational stuff. So yeah, I will do that. And in today's episode of Luke Talks, I will be teaching you how to write a screenplay. Thank you. There's 10 things I want you to remember when writing a screenplay, and there's a lot of technical things that go into a screenplay. So a screenplay is basically a blueprint for a movie, if you don't know what a screenplay is. So if you want to make a movie, a music video, whatever, through filmmaking, that will be a screenplay's job. And so, how do I make a screenplay, you may ask? I will teach you right now. So the first thing you want to do is this is what's called a breakdown in a way. A breakdown could mean like budgeting and stuff for films, but the breakdown for storyline, I just want to say like you should plan out how the story will go in a broad sense. Let's think of an example. Wolf of Wall Street. He gets into stockbroking, he gets a lot of money and does a lot of illegal things, and then he gets arrested, beginning, middle, and end. You can have a story that way, and there's a lot of insight to it. There's this creator of Comedy Central, and it's, Dan Harmon. He created Rick and Morty, he created Community. I don't know if that was on Comedy Central, but anyways. So basically, Dan Harmon, he had this circle, and it's how to make a story, plan a story, and I use this all the time for my own things. I actually used it for Gilbert and Grunge, and not really Albert and Steve, but anyways, I use this for a lot of films I make. So basically, when you start a script, I like to have the first point. There's eight points around the circle, and the first point is that the character is in a zone of comfort. He's comfortable. Maybe he's a bum like Adam Sandler, or maybe he's just in the zone of comfort financially, has a good job. He's in a zone of comfort. And then he wants something. So you go from a zone of comfort and you want something. Let's say he wants a raise, or he wants whatever. The character must want something. And a story needs to have a problem in it, right? So he enters an unfamiliar zone to get what he wants as a character. So, yeah, so basically you want something, you go out and get it. That's the third point. And then the fourth point is the character starts adapting to this new situation. The Hobbit is a perfect example. He starts off in his little hole, comfortable. He wants to go on an adventure, so he enters an unfamiliar situation, running to Gandalf and going on the adventure. I haven't read the book, I just watched the movie, so if that's any different from the book, I apologize. But, so he goes to Gandalf, and then he starts adapting to it. He's like scared at first, he's not really the fighter type. He's kind of cowardly in the beginning, but you see him progress, and that's what the fourth stage is, adapting. And then the fifth stage, you get what you want. So he got an adventure, and he started adapting, and then you get what you want. So he got this ring, I guess, and it gave him powers. He got something out of it. So after you get what you want, after adapting, then you move into a sacrifice stage. So basically, you get what you want as a character, but then the character loses something, or has to pay a heavy price for what he got. He pays a heavy price for it. He gets a ring, but then maybe, I don't know, Gandalf starts getting suspicious or something. I don't know, so he basically sacrifices something after he gets what he wants and sacrifices something. Then he goes back into where he was at the first stage, in a zone of comfort. But he's in that zone of comfort, but he's learned from that circle. So in the zone of comfort, he wants something, enters an unfamiliar situation, he adapts to it, he then gets what he wants, pays a heavy price for getting what he wants, goes back to stage one in a sense, but learns something in the process. So by the end of The Hobbit, you learn that he learns to take risks and not say no to everything and get outside his comfort zone. I guess that's the big general plot of the movie, or book. I mean, yeah, it's definitely more of a book. But yeah, so that's the story structure. Now, beginning and middle and end is the first point I made. The second point is Dan Harmon's style, the circle technique, which gets more in depth of how you can make a good story. Next, I want to talk about characters people play. So when you write a screenplay, I try my best to make characters that, and I probably could work on this, but characters that people will want to play. I love the example of Star Wars. Han Solo is like this cool character that, like, who wouldn't want to be Han Solo, right? Luke Skywalker, the Prince, Yoda. All these characters are really unique in a sense, and like fascinating to play. So you want each character to be unique and fascinating to play. So your actor, that'll help you find actors too, because I'm from Grass Valley where it's hard to find actors. So the more unique you make this character, the more people will want to play the characters provided. If you make a really boring screenplay with not really different characters who aren't really different in a sense, you'll find actors, but they might not be as motivated to portray this character. Maybe that's why Philip was so good at Leon, because Leon was such a fascinating character in Dollar Per Day. Now let's get into more. I'm going to start getting into the more technical stuff now. So when you write a screenplay, there's a certain way you have to format it. There's all this spacing. You want to have the character spaced like a couple tabs in the center or something. And you could open up a Word document and do the spacing yourself, but I highly don't recommend that. You're gonna wanna go on, you can download this app called Celtix for free, Celtic, C-E-L-T-X, and it will it basically opens up the so I'll put up example of what a script should look like. Maybe I'll post my own Gilbert and Grunge. I'll put an example of what the screenplay looked like when I wrote it, just to show you. But what I'm saying is there's certain spacing in the formatting that, and you can't just, it's really hard to format it by yourself. So you're gonna want to use softwares that format it for you. And what are these formattings that you want to do when writing a screenplay? Well, I'll get into that right now. So once you download Celtics, you're gonna see the document, and when you look at which, so let's say you're filming, right? And then it cuts from one scene to another. That's a cut in the script. You put that on the far right hand side of the page. You put the character in the middle, kind of centered by a certain spacing. And then the dialogue the character speaks when the character says something. That's below the character's name. And there's just lots of technical stuff into it. If you want to learn more about how to get into this technical stuff, I'm probably not going to cover all of it in this video, but comment if you want to learn about it. So there's certain formatting you have to learn when writing scripts, and downloading these softwares will really help you when writing scripts. It helped me a lot. It helped me figure out what's important to add in a script. Another thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to not direct the camera too much. And when you're, let's say you're big in Hollywood and you're writing scripts, you don't want to write a script for that directs the camera, because if you're not the cameraman, people want to do jobs. Filmmaking is a creative job, and if you tell a cinematographer how to do his job in your script, then he might not want to work with you, because that doesn't give as much creative freedom for him. And it's a big thing. Try not to direct the camera. You can imply, like saying, I don't know, looking, his eyes squint, so maybe that would imply that there's a close-up of his eyes. But you don't want to direct the camera too much. I try to stay away from this. Even though I am basically right now the cinematographer for FEECE Studios, I try not to direct the camera, just for practice, and basically because it takes away the creative process when I'm actually on production or making the storyboard, because I could also make a video on a storyboard, but that's off topic. So don't direct the camera, because that is kind of, it just doesn't work out, and it takes away from your creative, because filmmaking, a big part of filmmaking is experimenting. Oh, this didn't work, so let's try it this way. And if you have a certain vision, it can help, but it can also put limits on you. And I learned that a lot when making $1 per day. Also, and that also applies to music. I try not to specify what music is playing in the screenplay, because when you write a screenplay, you have this vision. Usually you have this big vision. Oh, I see it in my head. I envision what this film is going to look like. That was exactly it for $1 per day. I actually would listen to my brother's music, and I thought this could make a great soundtrack for a film. So that's inevitably what led to $1 per day. And everyone said the music was a couple people said the music was too loud for $1 per day, which I look back and think maybe it was a little loud for the scene. But the reason why I had so much loud music in $1 per day was because the music kind of inspired me to write $1 per day in a way, because Logan's music, my brother, he composes music with this app called MuseScore, and I just thought this could make a great movie, so I made it. And basically, it did put an anchor on me in a sense, because I wanted this music in this film no matter what. And it kind of held me back, because I could have tried other music, but I think overall $1 per day worked out. And it has great music, it's a great story, but try not to limit yourself when making music or camera directing. Just focus on the storyline, because a storyboard, that's what the storyboard's for. not the screenplay. The screenplay is for the story of what the characters say, what sound effects there are, and what choreography there is, but not for camera angles and stuff. So, and try not to specify music. What else? Capitalize actions. So let's say you're writing. It was a dark and stormy night. It was a dark and stormy night probably doesn't need to be capitalized, but if you direct, we see a man, if we see the man, that's capitalized because that's an action. If you really want to specify that there's a man there, or if you want it more not like, if you don't want to show that there's a man there and put emphasis on it, don't capitalize it. But if you want the people to know that there's a man there, capitalize it, because that's what people will see, and that's just how you want to capitalize your directions. So he stood up. He stood up would be capitalized. He sat down. You get the idea. So actions are capitalized. When you first introduce a character, you're gonna want to capitalize. Well, it's technically a law of script writing. You have to capitalize the first time the character is introduced. And then right next to his character name, which is all capitalized, you add the name, or not the name, the age of the character. So let's say he's a 30-year-old man, just put in parentheses 30 right next to his name. If he's 18, same thing, 18 right next to his name. And that really helps give a visual of what the character looks like, and that goes back to my third point, which is make characters people will want to play, because if you make the character detailed, people will be like, oh, this character's interesting, and they'll inevitably want to play more, which could get you more actors, man. When Star Wars was created, I'm kind of a Star Wars geek, I guess, but when Star Wars was created, it was a $10 million budget, which is really low for Hollywood. Usually, like Forrest Gump was like hundreds of millions of dollars to produce, because mainly the actors, a thing that takes up a lot of budget and finances for films is actors, because they need to pay these actors, these star talent people. That's why Leonardo DiCaprio has all this money, because he is a star talent, and a lot of producing the film goes to these actors and crew members and everything. Really, it's really expensive to make a film. But if you don't have that budget right now, and this is probably, if you're watching this, you probably don't have the budget. George Lucas, everyone said you can't make this film happen. You'd only have $10 million. You can't. He was really resourceful. The hovercraft, for example, when you see Luke Skywalker in the desert with that hovercraft, that was actually a car, a beat up car or something, and they made it in a way where they put it on a beam or something, and I could send a picture of like behind the scenes if, I don't know, but basically they were really resourceful for and so basically be reasonable but resourceful. If you have a really low budget, try not to add a tank inside your film, but if you have ways to work around it, like maybe you have a toy tank and you want to make just a low budget film the tank as a toy, and then like there are ways to work around it. But if you want a professional film and you don't have a lot of money, be reasonable but resourceful with what you have in your film, because being resourceful is all about filmmaking. Because when you go on set, you're probably gonna forget something. It happens to me all the time. I forgot. I brought lighting for the first day of $1 per day. The first scene we filmed, the first day of filming was actually the first scene in $1 per day, which was filmed at Hennessy Park. I brought this light with the outlet plug-in, right? But there was no outlets at Hennessy, so I couldn't have any light to light up the scene. So it was just pitch black for my camera. So what do? I see this light right above the thing. It's like a sensor light, so if you move in front of it, it turns on. And that made pretty decent light. This $1 per day was really below budget. But this light lit up the scene, and if it went off in the middle of the scene, we'd have to run around it and like say, hey, turn on light. So you have to be resourceful with what you work with and find, okay, this didn't work, how do we do it this way? That's big in filmmaking. Get feedback. Lots of feedback, and especially from people who have been in the industry a long time. my friend Andrew Rolland, he's a great friend of mine. For example, I showed him when I finished Dollar Per Day, I went to Northridge and showed him the script. And he gave me pointers. He said, try to think about this plot hole, this, that, the other. And he gave me pointers, but don't be around people who will only criticize and not point out what's good, because that really sinks, like, especially for me, like, it's good to be around people who won't tell you what you need to hear and tell you what you want to hear. But you also want to be around people who bring you up, in a sense. Like, because when I hear only negative comments on my film, like when you make a project, there's inevitably going to be a lot of naysayers, and not just naysayers, people who don't like your project at all, and or your idea, and and you want to stay away from those people. You want to get feedback from people who believe in you and what you're doing. But it's also, if you really want brutally honest feedback, go to the people who don't believe in you. It sounds weird, but it actually really helps. And ask for advice. Say what could be better, because they will give you the feedback you need to hear instead of what you want to hear, which can inevitably, bring to a better project. I'm gonna make more of these. That was all the 10 points, man. All the 10 points that I wrote to make a great script. I didn't really get into like the spacing or like how to make, I mean, if you want more technical details on formatting the scripts, please let me know. If not, I probably won't make one. I'm probably gonna do something more, maybe how to play guitar, I'm gonna a broad sense of artistic stuff I'm gonna teach through Luke Talks. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching this Luke Talks episode. Have a great day.
Guts of Iron.